Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Mark, and I'm going to be taking this. Session today. So pleased to meet you all. First things first. Obviously being a Q&A session, so it's very open and very nerve-wracking for your speaker today, i.e. me, but that's all good. If you send any questions in as soon as possible, and I can start thinking about them and obviously trying to respond to them. What I'll do, of course, is I'll bring up the question as so that everybody can see them. I'll do my best to answer them. Obviously, I can't guarantee 100% satisfaction, but I will do my level best. And feel free as well to ask follow-up questions on particular questions. If it's not quite what you wanted to know, please keep going until you've got what you're looking for. If I can't answer it to the greatest of your satisfaction, hopefully I can at least put you in a place where you can sort of look further as well. Okay, so like I say, put the questions up. As soon as the questions start coming in, I will start answering them, and it's much better when this comes from you than it does from me. For those of you who have not encountered me, I do this quite often on Saturday at 4 o'clock in England, because I'm from Cheltenham, which is kind of central southwesty in England. And at the moment it's blowing an absolute gale out there, but I've managed to get out in the garden this morning, so I'm feeling a better man for that. Bit of my career before you start sending in questions. Oh, one other thing I will ask you to do. Obviously, all I've got is a little number up there saying how many of you are here. I'd be very grateful if you would, first of all, say that you can see and hear me. And secondly, if you could just sort of put in and just say hello from wherever you're calling in from today. It's always really nice to see where people are attending this from. Most of all, greatest of importance, I should say, though, get the questions in. So let me know you can see and hear me. Say where you're from, and questions, please. Okay, while that's starting, it always takes a few minutes somehow. I always think that people must come in with questions ready-made, but previous experience would suggest possibly not. So I'll just tell you a little bit about myself. I've been teaching now since 1991. I would like to pretend I was 3 years old when I started, but frankly, that's not the case. And so it's been 34 years. Right now, my main job, apart from working for TEFL Academy, which is very enjoyable, my main job is I work for the Ministry of Defence as well. So I do various groups there, and I've just finished one yesterday, which was to do with NATO, and it was very high level. They were kind of the Cambridge equivalent of proficiency, and so they were asking lots and lots of questions, which was great, and pushing me very hard, which is also fantastic. So that was what I was doing. There. Regarding the questions, I've got 16 of you watching, and I have received a grand total of 0 for the moment. So somebody stick their head above the parapet and ask me something, because otherwise it's going to be a very short. This is going to be a very short one otherwise. But I would also be grateful to make sure that everything's working well, that you can hear from me. Great. Okay, thank you very much, and hello from Canada / Peru, and hello from Portugal as well. This is all good. I'm glad to see that I can be seen and heard anyway, which much appreciated. Okay, so different things that you can ask about if you want. Obviously, ask about the assignments if you're in the middle of it. Hello from South Wales, so you're not too far away from me. Different things you can ask about. Obviously, you might be in the middle of assignments, so if you want to ask anything about that, obviously better if you can be fairly specific about it rather than just how do you do assignment whatever one it is. If you've got something you're particularly struggling on, then that's always good to it's always good to be able to sort of see if we can get into the detail of it. Also ask about grammar if you want, which is great. How to teach a specific point. Now that might be overall in terms of how do you teach grammar, how do you teach lexis, both of which of course are dealt with on the course. Also talk about things like work opportunities if you want to. Hello from South Africa. Talk about opportunities for work, which is one of the reasons that many of you will be here. Nice to hear a bit about your experiences as well and share those, which is great. And one big one that seems to come up quite often in this as well is asking about qualifications and things like that. Obviously, can't be Johnny on the spot for everything, but I can kind of give my impressions. Prior to doing the work that I'm doing now, I worked first of all as a teacher for a long time. I worked in a bank in the city in London, but I was also a manager, like a head teacher, or what they call a director of studies, and I ran a department of a language company for a long time. So I've kind of got an idea of what the expectations are in different places for different qualifications. Of course, in your cases, a lot of the time you're maybe taking this because you don't want to particularly be working in the UK. Certainly looking at all the people here, the majority of you are not from the UK, so you're looking to work either in your own countries or to travel to other countries as well. And the level 3 and the level 5 are great door openers, both in terms of opportunities, but also in understanding what the expectations are for when you actually do get into classrooms and you start teaching. So I do think that's something I'll just mention, and then hopefully the questions will start coming in. But that's something I will mention, I think, is that when you're doing the assignments, really, really do think of them not as testing, but as learning. Certainly the people who mark them and the people who are doing the webinars and whatever else are really, really there to try to help you, and hopefully to, make you as good as you can, and to really help, well, not so much make you good, but to put you in a position where you're going to start improving once you start teaching. You have the ability to reflect on what you've been doing, to learn from the lessons that you have given, and to think, okay, that was pretty good. How can I improve? And to sort of give you a sort of critical framework where you think, okay, what worked, what didn't work, what can I do? Look back at your notes. Okay, how did this work? I seem to have a lot more people now than I did when I started, so I will just repeat what I said before, which is obviously start throwing in the questions, and that's brilliant. In fact, I've got my first one, which is wonderful. So thank you, and I will deal with that. Please keep chucking them in. So the first one I've got here, I'm just going to bring this one up. Thank you very much. As you can see here, free short courses run. This is fantastic for a couple of reasons. This is great. The obvious one is that they tend, because they're free short courses, there's a low expectation on you. And so, sorry, I was looking at the next question, which is a terrible thing to do. I shall address this question only and do a better job with it. Because it's low expectation, you don't have necessarily specific aims to take out of it. You don't have particular things you have to accomplish. The biggest things that you're doing there is kind of making people feel welcome as well, which, of course, with everything that's going on politically, just in the UK and around the world, is not such an easy thing to do all of the time. The other great thing about it is you will meet some fantastic people doing this. I've done some work with, what we here we call asylum seekers, migrants and refugees, and they are just brilliant. And to work with them is such a privilege. So it's great on the if you like what we call the intrinsic motivation. Just in itself, it's a fabulous thing to do. Also, in terms of when you say complementing your TEFL, great for your CV when you choose to start looking for work as well. Really, really good. And it is, from what I just said, it's a brilliant idea that you have the idea that you already get the chance to reflect. And what I suggest, the biggest single thing I'd say that you need to do when you do a course like that is listen. And by listening, you're working out what do people need. Now, obviously, you can't necessarily address their every need. That's not what you're there for. But you can start building up a mental framework of what does this person require? How would I address that? And those are the things that you'll take into your future teaching as well. So there's absolutely everything about doing something like this, I think, is absolutely fabulous, and great that you've been looking around to take up opportunities like this, both as something that you might continue to do or something that you'll do, like I say, from the point of view extrinsic motivation of improving your CV, getting some experience as well. Either way, it's great. Okay, next one here. Just started the level 5 course. Have my class. Oh, blimey! And I have my classroom teaching in a week. Best of luck. How far through the course should I be to get the most of it? I mean, you can imagine what my answer is going to be. Try to be all the way through it if you possibly can. Well, one of the issues that you've got here is that when you're doing the level 5, of course, the first part is largely about sort of making exercise and things like that, about sort of building up things that happen. But you do get, if you think about the way that the level 5 class, the level 5 assignment, I'll try that one again. The level 5, the A assignment, the way that works is that, of course, the first part, you've got the text and you need to start trying to teach the vocab of that. The second part, you're asking questions about the text, and the third part, you've got the text. So it's only dealing, and then you have to do the exercises. So in each of those cases, you're working with a text. So you're doing a specific skills reading task. Now that's great because it really helps you with that. It's not going to help you so much with the grammar. So first thing I'd say, despite having said that, don't panic. If you have to do grammar classes, make sure that you have read up very, very carefully on that specific piece of grammar before. And this is a more general point, is when you're a new teacher, don't think you have to know the grammar, because you never stop learning it is one thing. But what you do need to do is be very well prepped on the specific grammar point that you are teaching. And from that, you learn as you go, and you find that very, very quickly it sort of just becomes part of your own mental framework. So I would say do as much of the course as you can, but keep reading as well, and then maybe have an idea of what the distinction is between, say, a skills course, on a skills exercise, and something that's grammar based as well. Those are the kind of the biggest distinctions that you'll be looking at. If you can get that idea into your head, then you should be fine. In terms of that's a long answer, obviously, to your question, but the short answer is try to do as much of it as you can, and go in, as I said previously, go in with an open mind, go in ready to listen. If you're not sure what to do, let your students kind of tell you what you need to do. Okay. So, in fact, I've got a little answer, I think, here as well, which I think is lovely. So I'm just going to put that up. Thank you, Ilse. If you're going straight into a classroom as well, and I think there's a really good point made here, you should expect to have some serious backup as well. They really should be helping you as well. You're not going to be chucked in with advanced students. If you are, then you really need to be asking questions of the people who are giving you the work in the first place. You should be there with comfortable, low-level students, where whatever else happens, you're going to know more. You're going to know more than they do. So I think that's a really nice point to make. Thank you for that. Okay, next one I've got here. Hello to Greece. TTT. No, TTT is one particular form of teaching. Test, teach. Sorry, I'll try that one again. It's a test, teach, test, or teach, test, teach, whichever one you prefer. It is, in fact, the former. Test, teach, test again. Now, I'd say the answer to that is no, and there's a particular reason why it's no, which is that you don't always need to test your students that thoroughly. If you've got a group of students who are all the same age, they've gone through the same curriculum, then you don't need to worry too much about where they are, because where the curriculum is where they are. You would use more of this if you're going to a class you don't know very much about them, or if you were going into, say, English, an EFL class, so maybe not a school situation. You're going into an EFL class rather than in a school, and you've got people coming from all over. They've all got different backgrounds. They've all got different learning ideas. You would hope that they are more or less at the same level, because that's the job of the school, to stream them based on early testing. But you might find, in fact, you almost inevitably will find, that some of them know these bits and pieces and some of them don't. So I'd say teach, test, teach works quite well for test, teach, test. Works very well for that, because you're working out what they know, and you're also working out, because it's highly unlikely that all of them know the particular thing that you're trying to do or that you're trying to teach. And so what you can do is, of course, you're using the ones who know or who have some idea about it in order to help the other ones. And the second point about that is that you also have to think about how much a class knows as well. The reason you think, well, that makes it difficult. Some of them know it, some of them don't. Oh no, what do I do? The point is, how many of them use this as sort of part of their just their ongoing discourse, that they can just use it spontaneously? No, if you put, and this would be an idea, say if we look at the L5 bit, assignment B, which is teaching grammar, and it's teaching the first conditional. Sure, there's probably plenty of them that if you put up a gap fill, which you would probably do for the controlled exercise of if something, comma, they will something else, or something like that. Lots of them can fill that in. That's one thing. But how many of them can actually just use it? How many of them can just use it spontaneously and without thinking about it? So that's the distinct point that you're looking at. So even if they are on different levels going in vis-a-vis a particular grammar point, doesn't mean that some of them need the work and some of them don't. They might need different levels of this. And as I say, for the points where some of them are comfortable, you're using them maybe to help the other guys to come up to that level, and you want everybody at the end to be able to come out with a certain level of fluency. And so that would be the aim of your level. So so I don't think, by the way, I'll just say thank you. I think that's a nice thing for you to say there, Sophie. So I think TTT works pretty well, but it's not an absolute, and no specific way of teaching should be an absolute after all, because if it is, your students tend to recognize it after a while. And it also suggests that and this is a very normal thing when you're new, and nobody would blame you for doing this, but when you are new, you tend to think, okay, what's the particular system that I need? Am I going to do a PPP? Am I going to do TTT? Whatever it may be. And after a little while, of course, instead of thinking about that, because you're thinking about how you're going to create. Yeah, thank you, Math. You've got exactly what I was going to say here. Instead of which, you're thinking, okay, what's best for the students? And so exactly what Mav says here, which is flexibility is key. And the reason why it is key is because you are becoming, as you become a more experienced teacher, you're thinking, okay, what do they best need and what best serves their needs? And you're no longer thinking, okay, how do I, as a teacher, create the correct structure of a lesson to go through? You're handing it from, rather than thinking about yourself. You're very much putting it into your starting, and it's a slow process. Took me a long time to do it. I hope you were a bit quicker than I ever was. But you're putting yourself in the position of your students instead, and that is really, really the vital thing that you start doing. And that's part of that flexibility, and it's part of that sort of listening thing that I mentioned at the start, where you really are thinking, it's not about what I'm saying, it's about what I'm hearing, it's about what's coming back. So I think that's a vital thing to say. I can say more about this, but I'm still waiting for more questions to come in. Right, so yeah, those are some great questions, by the way, so much appreciated. And I'm glad that you're sort of mentioning a little bit about the different styles of teaching as well. So TTT and PPP, which is obviously two slightly different ways of doing things. Not that far different in many ways when you when you break them down. Above all, the criteria for anything that you do is going to be, okay, how do you what do they come out of it? What do they come out of it with? I will say one thing about this, because it does occasionally happen, and that is when people tend to sort of rip up the rule book. Now, I've got no particular problem with rule books being ripped up, but when you're doing an assignment, your assignment is asking you to fulfill a specific specific task, and so we do expect you to actually follow the procedure of that particular task. Sometimes you get the idea that people go, no, I'll chuck that out of the way. I can do better. Well, maybe you can, but the first thing you need to do is to be able to prove that you can do it in the normal, conventional way that we're asking you to do. If later on you decide that you can take another path to it, then that's absolutely great. But right now, this is a specific task. This is an examination. This is an academic document. So we would like you to do it this way. Then you can diverge in whichever way you feel you see fit once you are actually a teacher. So do pay attention pretty carefully to what is in the course content, to the examples you are given, and to the instructions you are given, because that's kind of, it's an examination after all. And the more that you do that, then the more I think that we can help you, because we can help you to sort of fulfill those criteria, and therefore to become a good teacher. If you're following your own path, right, that's fine, but there's nobody that nobody's going to judge you in that sense. And if they can't establish criteria, then they can't help you as well. So do really pay attention to the content, and very much to the examples as well. And do remember that the examples are for different language. For instance, in the B, the example is for the present perfect, and what you are asked to do is the first conditional. Very, very different. Well, even yesterday it happened that somebody sent me an assignment for the present perfect and basically copied it from what they had received before, what they had seen. You can't do that for the obvious case. I simply have to send it back, and you've wasted an attempt, and you've wasted quite a lot of your own time doing it. Sorry, I don't mean to be here waving a big stick, but these things happen, so I thought I would share that with you anyway. Okay. Does anybody else have any questions? I'm absolutely desperate for questions. I'm a bit like a lonely local radio person at 3 o'clock in the morning, hoping that there's somebody else out there. I can see there because I can see the number of people who are watching, which is absolutely great. You've asked me about assignments. Please feel free to ask me about any particular grammar points or what you think is best. Ask me about how to teach a particular grammar point or lexical point if you wish. That would be great. Ask about work opportunities, as I mentioned, qualifications that you require to do different tasks, and different opportunities that you have as well in the future. Maybe while I'm waiting, while I'm still speaking into the void, I'll talk a little bit about, I think, kind of the opportunity element to this, and the different ways that this works. And it's a funny thing. I think, like many people, I didn't exactly expect to spend my life actually in English teaching. Thank you, Daniel. I just finished what I'm saying, but thank you for the question, and I will answer it in a second. That the more that you teach and the better the job you do, then the more opportunities and the more doors open to you. So just because you start off with something that's maybe, should we say, suboptimal, then it often leads to better things, either through people you teach, people you meet, and your own openness to other opportunities as well. And that's why this is a really great career. Okay, Daniel, this is a great question and something that often happens. Yes, this quite often happens. It has to be said, and there's no getting away from it. It doesn't matter how long you've been teaching. It's a tough gig. I think that the ways I deal with this occasionally are kind of, you dial it down. Largely, when I go into a classroom, I always think that my energy level should match that of the students and be slightly above it, which is great when they're full of energy, and then you can just, you can set light to that, and you can, and everybody's having a great time. When people are sat back and you've got to reach out to them, I would say that the first thing in that case, where there's no point in you dancing around full of enthusiasm at the front if you're getting nothing back from the student. Don't even try to do that. If it's not going to work in that way, don't do it. So I think the first thing you can do is, if you can, sort of confront it, not by being angry or not by saying okay, but saying, why are you here? What can we do about this? It's very, very rare that people just go, yeah, I don't want to be here, I don't want to be around you. They'll actually generally tend to share this with you. So I suppose at this point, by the way, I'm talking about adults. I'll come on to children in a second. So I think you have to go with that to a certain extent, and you find out, okay, what are people interested in? What do they want to do? What do they want to talk about? You've got to establish some sort of dialogue that, if you like, is above and beyond that of the actual lesson, and what you and maybe what you came in to do. Questions you can ask her: what do you need this for? Why would this be useful for you? Okay, let's try and tailor this to you so that we're actually doing something that might be of benefit to you. I would say that's the biggest single one to do. And I think the other thing, and this goes for both children and for adults, is don't beat yourself up, because people who come into your class are going to get a very good, very motivated teacher. If they don't give it back to you, then sometimes it's kind of their problem as well. And try not, it's very difficult to do this, but try not to take it home and to worry about it too much. Reflect on it, as you should reflect on every single lesson that you do. Think about what you can do better, but do not start thinking you're a terrible teacher or this is your problem. In this case, if you're talking about adults, they have a certain responsibility as well. And if they choose not to fulfill that responsibility, then you just keep being professional. You keep doing what you do. Keep the dialogue open the whole time. So this isn't an elephant in the room. This isn't something that we're pretending isn't there because I'm pretending that everything's okay at the front of the class and you're giving me nothing. No, actually step forward and say, come on, how can I help? How can we get around this? What can we actually do about it? For children, and I'm sure you've heard this before, but it's worth applying. Now, obviously, a lot of this doesn't work with children. I would do two things. The first is really chop up the activities pretty so they're pretty short. Often with children, of course, you're going to get the fidgeting as well. You don't really get so much of the sulks sometimes, admittedly, but you get a lot of fidgeting. And so quite a lot of the time, it might just be that kids are, trying to do quite a lot of other. My youngest is like that. She bounces everywhere. And, if she can walk to school doing handstands, then she will, rather than actually walking in a straight line. It must be very difficult to teach. I'm glad I don't have to do it. So try to husband that in some way. Try to make the lessons more kinetic. Try to get them out of the seat. Try to get them pointing at things rather than actually giving a verbal answer, anything like that. And again, like I say, move it around, change the activities, and don't be worried in either case, adults or children. Don't be worried about saying, look, this isn't working, let's try something, let's try, let's try this another way, or let's go on to the next thing. Like I say, actually being open is really, really good in both ways. Now, none of those things that I'm saying there are absolute cast iron guarantees that you will win out, but hopefully that they will make it a little bit better. Okay, good question here. Do you think that teaching with differentiation is applicable to teaching very large groups? I do agree it's more difficult to have the individualization. That's most certainly the case. So yeah, the things that you do with groups that are larger, in some senses, you kind of apply the differentiation to them. And that is that you start putting up group work so that maybe people can apply themselves in the ways that suit them better. And again, it's the good thing about, those who know a little bit more can help those who know a little bit, who know a little bit less. I would say the other thing that I would do in any sort of situation like that, and it's such an important thing for bonding and getting a bit of sort of loyalty, or a bit of response back, is making sure that when you do put them in groups, making sure you get around each of those groups and you get a little bit of sort of, oh yeah, that was really good what you said there, let's try, could you say it, like a little bit of correction, a little bit of one-to-one, so that they know that they have been listened to at some point. They've been listened to, they've been complimented, they've been corrected. Maybe not every individual, but sort of every individual within a group of 2 or 3 has had something back from that. It has to be, obviously it can be very, very quick, but it makes a difference. It makes the bond, and it makes them feel, even if they can't articulate the fact, it makes them feel like an individual. So I'd say that's really, really a really important one. Okay. Presenting the lessons in visuals. It's acceptable to a certain extent. First of all, if you're teaching primary school teacher, a large proportion of what you do has to be visual in some way or other. Now, that can be visual combined with a more kinetic way of doing things. So they're moving around the classroom slowly with the tables out the way and all risk assessments haven't been done, but you have them moving around the classroom. But yes, it is acceptable. What I think is difficult, and again, it depends on your your individual situation, and whoever you're working with, and what the expected outcomes are, what the expectations of the parents are, particularly if it's a private school or an evening school or something like that. There does need to be some sort of more, should we say, quantifiable element, maybe a little bit of writing or something like that, a little bit of reading as well. If you're going to do something purely in visuals, then it's largely a speaking and listening and listening lesson. And that's okay, but most people expect to also have some written element, something that gives proof that they've actually understood what they're doing, and something their parents can see, and something that they can also have a look at. I think all those things are fine. So presenting the lessons in visuals is acceptable, yes, but not in exclusivity, I suppose would be the short answer. Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry to hear you haven't been successful. Age is the barrier. I mean, I always strongly feel that anywhere where something in this sense is a barrier is their problem and not your problem. But you clearly don't feel like that, because you're the one who hasn't got their job, and that's really, really it's just plain unfair. And 57, and I speak from my own, is no age at all. In many ways you can be at your prime there, and anybody who wants to, if somebody wants to dispense or not take on your services because of that, is absolutely they're doing themselves a disservice. as well. I can't even begin to plumb the reasons why people think that this is the case. In terms of advice, in general, there tend to be lots and lots of places that will take you. Maybe you need to look in other places. Maybe it's not there that you need to be looking, or you need to do. Now, a lot of this is down to you. Are you looking for anything anywhere in the world and you just want to travel, you want to get out, or have you got specific? I'm guessing if you're talking about the Middle East or the Far East, there's probably other places are available as well. The other thing that you could do about this, of course, and this is something we mentioned at the start, is to start working on other avenues as well in terms of improving your CV, in terms of improving your experience as well, such as we mentioned, working with working with asylum seekers or something like that, which is just great in itself anyway. I wish I could give you better advice about this, because but telling me about something that's just plainly unjust, I only really have sympathy, and I wish I could have something that would really turn that one around, and I'm afraid I don't. But I do think if you keep going, you'll find what you want. But while you're looking, really try to work on what you have and what you offer. And if somebody's just going to put a line through your name because of your age, that has to be their problem at the end. And unfortunately, they can't be, as they can in most countries, they can't be they can't be called up for this. So my sympathies on that one, really my sympathies. But you will win out. Undoubtedly, you will win out. There still aren't enough people in the world doing what we do for them to be able to dispense with somebody's services. Everybody to be able to do that. That's not the case. You remain in a growth industry. Okay, and hopefully teach abroad. Okay, so it looks like you're trying to do two things here. I guess you're tutoring online and teach abroad. Now, whether you're doing one after another or whether you're doing them simultaneously, I'm not sure. What other qualifications? The more experience you have, the better. If you're starting to tutor and you're teaching abroad, then one assumes that your qualifications will be sufficient for that particular one. Just so you know, if you like, the higher qualifications in TEFL would largely be the CELTA, which is a level 5, but it has an observed element, which is why it tends to be approved by the British Council. Now, the CELTA was very popular until about 10 years ago, because the majority of people who wanted to teach English wanted to do it and then maybe work in a UK language centre for various decisions made at governmental level, Brexit being one of them, which wasn't governmental. That was the people voting. The bottom has largely fallen out of the teaching English in England market, which is a great shame. Something I used to be part of as well. So therefore, the online element came in, and on the online element includes, of course, what you're doing with the TEFL Academy, where this British Council criterion of observed elements to your teaching were no longer particularly necessary, because if people were moving abroad to teach, if they're teaching in their own language, teaching in their own countries, it wasn't so much of a necessity. So I would say that if you want to move on up, then the CELTA is probably, although it's also a level 5, the same as many of you will be studying, the CELTA is probably the way to go. And if you're looking for a further qualification, if you're looking to get into management, then the Delta. The Delta, I did it in 8 weeks. Some people do it over a couple of years. It's the equivalent of a master's, and it's really tough. You need a lot of experience to do it, but it's a great qualification. But make sure you've had a few years in TEFL. Make sure that this is what you enjoy. Make sure this is what you want to do. It's also not cheap as well. I did it 20 years ago, and it was thousands of pounds even then. As regards experience, if you are fairly new at language teaching, there is just no bad experience. Even the bad experiences, you look back and think that was useful to you in some way. And some of the things that you might do might be ones that you think, okay, I'm glad I did that because I found out what I am not as a teacher. I mean, for me, teaching children, I mean, I've got little enough patience with my own, so let alone anybody else's. And I'm far too taken up with my own self-importance to be able to deal with children too much. Um, but you come through this and you do an okay job, and then you think, okay, right, I'll move on to something else. And now I work in the areas that I want to work with, which is with military and with tends to be senior management types and things like that, and I really enjoy doing that. Other people, bless them, and I wish I had their talent, are great working with children, and they absolutely love it, and they feed off it, and it really energizes them. And the great thing about teaching children and lower levels in general is you can really see the progress as well, which is a wonderful and rewarding thing if you can do it. So any experience is good. That's a sort of an idea of specific qualifications that you might look at later once you've got this and once you've got a certain amount of experience. But nowadays, experience is kind of lying around there. If you all you need to do is to pick it up. I think tutoring online is also brilliant because the online market now is such a huge one, and that's not going to get any less anytime soon. And it is not very, but it's a slightly different set of expectations on a screen to build a proper rapport with either one person or with a class. Very difficult to do. I was teaching a senior officer and we were having 8-hour lessons. Fortunately for my sanity, he was absolutely brilliant and the lessons just flew by. But please don't try 8 hours in a day, and certainly not when you have to get up the next day and do it all over again. So there was all sorts of things that you can be doing out there. Those are the qualifications specifically. The experience I leave as general because it very much depends on your own area, where you live, what you're doing, who you're around. If this is Sophie, I think you mentioned you're from South Wales. Well, if you're in Cardiff, as you're well aware, there will be asylum seekers and people who are desperate for a bit of help and a bit of human contact and a bit of starting to learn and starting their journey in English and in the UK. So it's fertile ground. Okay, right. This is a good one. Yeah, when doing the assignments of the course, can we use YouTube videos made by TEFL certified teachers as sources? Yes, you can. Do make sure. When I was studying, it was pretty much books and magazines, and so doing your bibliography was pretty simple. Nowadays, there is no end of different areas that you can get out of, so that's absolutely fine. But make sure that you reference it correctly and you take some time over that. Something that really, really is noticeable, by the way, is the time and care that people put into the bibliography. It says quite a lot about you. I think as a as a teacher, as a learner, and as a person, as to how much you put in. So don't disregard that. This is an academic document that or 3 academic documents at level 5 that you're producing, and therefore the bibliography is expected. We don't expect perfection, but we certainly expect a certain level of effort. So once more, long answer short, yes, you can use YouTube videos. I suggest you don't use them in exclusivity. The printed word, especially when you're learning, is still probably primary, but yeah, it's a good idea. And there's an awful lot out there. You're very fortunate, I think, to have access to that when you're learning, because it certainly wasn't around in the 1990s, so it was great. Okay, thank you for that. 45 minutes, wow, has flown by now. I'm still happy. Really am happy to be here as long as anybody requires me. I will start wrapping up at this point, but I'm happy to shuffle back if anybody sends any more questions. But I'm just going to jump forward, obviously. So maybe I should have put this in from the start, the Q&A. This is worth noticing. the YouTube channel, and yes, as mentioned, you could use those as well as in your bibliography. Thank you for attending the webinar. And I'm just going to show you something else, which I shall show you at a little bit of length. Obviously, you can see the QR code there. If you could just take that and then you can give feedback on the webinar, then we'd be very grateful to you for doing so. So I'll leave that one up there. And what always happens at this point is I start wrapping up and saying thank you for attending, which I will do so now. Thank you for attending. And then somebody pops a last question in, which like I say, I'm more than happy to field if anybody wishes to do that. Otherwise, I will start finishing up here. It's been a pleasure. So thank you very much, and thank you for the great questions. Really enjoyable, and I do like the fact you push me a little bit on anything like this. It's really keeps me on my toes. So thank you for that. I knew it. I'm just going to pop this one up there. This is great. If I apply for a job abroad, am I supposed to know the native language of the country I'm going for, or are the lessons carried out in English? Great question. And the answer, I think, to that is it pretty unequivocal. No, you don't need to know the native language. And one of the great opportunities of going to another country is to pick up some of the language. Once you get offered the job, then by all means start working on it. Because the more you know, the more you'll get out of it as well. But and obviously, all of the things to do with life come much easier when you speak the language in the other country. But no, it shouldn't normally be a criterion for taking on the job itself. The people who are, say, for instance, if they're running their own language school, the people running the language school have a very good idea of what they want from somebody, and if they think you're fine, you'll be okay coming here, then they'll be happy to offer the job. And if they think it's pretty much an impossibility, then they won't, because obviously they don't want to go to the time and trouble of employing somebody from another country who then comes out and then heads home 2 weeks later because they don't think that they can survive in the country. I suppose the biggest distinction here really is if you go somewhere where plenty of people are already going to speak English, and therefore you'll be able to get by in English. That's probably the biggest single one. If you think that you're going to be all at sea, well, that's another matter entirely. But there's no reason why that should be the case in many cases. The reason that we're all here learning to teach English is the world language, and it means you can take it. It means you can take it anywhere, and all the more reason to go to another country and to learn another language, because those of us who, as most English people, if you only speak one language, you are really missing out, because the rest of the world doesn't just speak one language, and everything that entails in terms of living somewhere else. But that language as well, and the way you see the world with a different pair of eyes, is absolutely great. So again, I give you a long answer and short answer, no. Okay, thank you very much. And I shall end the stream now, unless anybody has a last question. But those were really good. Once again, thank you so much, and see you next time. Take care.